It's a good idea. We normally do this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to pause just a bit because sometimes we have folks coming in a little bit later. And so if you are visiting with us for the first time, we really appreciate that. And we actually have a gift for you. So if you're visiting with us for the first time, could you just stand up and let us show our appreciation for you? Who's here for the first time? Welcome.
Today's readings are from Ernest Holmes, and he says, "Whatever is true of the universe as a whole must also be true of the individual as some part of the whole. Each individual is evolved from the universe as a self-conscious thinking center of living spirit, and as such must, in nature and being, reproduce the universe." That's from The Science of Mind. And Ernest goes on to say, "Right now, we are as much of this spiritual reality as we ever will be, although we will be continually becoming more aware of it. We are all incarnations of God. God is what we are. God is not lost, neither can we ever be. But what we need to do, and what we always do, is to express more and more of its nature through ourselves. This is the endless pathway that is the immortal and eternal endeavor, the continual upward spiraling of our awareness of God as what we are. A greater knowledge, experience, and expression of God is always our goal."
Well, hello. How y'all doing? I'm wondering, what are you sure about? You know, if you were writing down a couple of things that you feel certain about, what would you write down? A feeling of certainty. You know what a feeling of certainty is? A feeling of certainty is a belief. That's what a belief is, a feeling of certainty. The Bible calls it faith, and in Hebrews 11 you see the definition of faith as being certain of something that you don't see. And so that's really important, belief and faith, because it's belief that determines what you do in your life. It's faith and belief that determines what you create. Always has and always will be true. And it's never the events that shape our lives, but it's what we believe about those events that determines what we do in our life. People are so different. You know, you and I both know people that have achieved miraculous things, and it's wonderful when we see people do that. And then we probably have bumped into a few people that may not be doing all that much. They haven't created all that much. And so what makes a difference in people like that? And so often it comes down to simply what they believe, the beliefs. When you think about your beliefs, where do you think your beliefs came from? Maybe they came from parents, maybe they came from caretakers, but most of the time a belief is just a generalization that we make as we grow and as we go through life. Something happens in life and we have an idea about what that means or what this means. And when we run that idea over a few times, we begin to string those ideas together. And the more we do that, the stronger the belief comes. And so we actually create our own beliefs. Can you hear me okay? Must be my brain fading in and out. It is? Okay. So we often think our beliefs are facts also. We think that they are reality. Once we adopt a belief, it becomes reality to us, and we don't even question it anymore. We just think that's how it is. That's the truth of life. And so it's really important what you believe, because that determines what your experience in life is about. It determines what you feel. It determines what you think. It determines what you think about other people. Your belief can cause your heart rate to increase, or it can cause it to slow down. Your belief can cause you to perform really well or perhaps not so well. It determines if you're sick, and it can also determine if you're feeling well. Belief is a strong, powerful thing in our lives. It determines how much of our capacity we actually use as we live our lives and do whatever it is that we're doing. And so one of the most important parts of our lives is what we believe. It's that feeling of certainty that gives us confidence and gives us power. It's really what makes a difference in what people create in their lives. And there are all kinds of beliefs. There's big beliefs, little beliefs. What do I believe about the world? What do I believe about people? What do I believe about my body? What do I believe about the situations around me? All kinds of beliefs. But I think there's one belief that stands out. One belief is probably more important to you and to me than any other belief. And that's the belief that determines every decision that we make. It's the belief that is an ultimate filter for all of our perceptions. And that belief is the belief we have about who we are. It deals with our identity. What we can and cannot do is rarely a function of our capacity, but it almost always comes down to what we believe is possible for us in life. And so you would expect me then to ask you this question: who are you? And because it's Sunday morning and we're at the Center for Spiritual Living, I suspect you would say, well, I'm a spiritual being. But on Monday morning, you might not say that. On Monday afternoon, you might have a different answer. Now, we may verbalize, depending on who we're talking to, I'm a spiritual being, but the reality is, how are we really functioning in life? Is that belief really something that we're absolutely sure of or not? Because remember, that determines what you do with your life. It determines what you create. It determines how you feel. And if you trace human history, you can see the power that's available just based on that one belief about yourself. And the principle is that we're designed in such a way that we always strive to live in harmony with the belief that we have about who we are. And so today I want to talk about you. This may be your favorite topic. And so I want to talk about you, but not just any you. I want to talk about the big you. I want to talk about the authentic you, the big, beautiful you, the expressive you, and see if we can nail down what the belief might be. It's important that we feel safe when we discuss something like this. And so we've already set the tone with that. We have practitioners that are here praying. Other people are in prayer in one way or the other. We've had the beautiful music and the words from Cindy that help set the environment. And you're surrounded by other spiritual beings right now. Some of them with bodies, and perhaps a few that may be here without any bodies at all, and yet they're blessing us in the same way. Does that make sense? Okay, and so I'm thinking of the man, a prophet who was in the Isle of Patmos, and this is in Revelation 21, verse 5, and he wrote these words: "Behold, I make all things new." And I did a study some time ago of the word behold, and behold is a really important word. You know, I might see someone and I might glance at them. I might see someone and simply see them. I might see someone and look at them. Behold takes it to a whole new level because it means pausing and it means doing it with intention. Beholding is a powerful word, and in the original language it means the highest state of spiritual discernment. And when we cultivate that kind of beholding and seeing, it means we can see the presence of God in every situation. It means we can see the love of God, the peace of God, all of those attributes regardless of what the situation happens to be or the circumstances happen to be. So beholding is a powerful thing. Beholding. And when we do behold, everything becomes new in our lives. When that happens, we're no longer fooled by the appearance of things. Because you and I know that circumstances and things can happen around us and it can throw us at times. And we don't really see the reality. So beholding means you look through the situation, you look through the circumstances, and you see what's really taking place. And so it's a fundamental thing. I think about in the beginning, as I thought about the talk, I thought, well, I'd like to begin in the beginning. And so I thought about the first book in the Jewish Bible, Genesis, which means beginning. And in that first chapter, there's a statement that says everything that has been made by God is good. Now, we don't always think that way. We don't always feel that way. When we behold something, we look for the good. We look through the turbulence so that we can see the fundamental reality of the goodness of life. And so I would think we would want to more and more operate from that basis, because if we do, it will radically change our lives and how we feel. We don't want to get snagged on the second chapter of Genesis in verse 6, where it simply says, and there arose a mist, M-I-S-T. There arose a fog. I think Don Miguel Ruiz called it matote. Some people call it Maya, but it's a fog, it's a mist. And everything after Genesis 2:6 in the Bible describes a world that's based on appearance. That's a transitional world, a world of phenomena, meaning it's changing constantly, changing all the time. So you and I have a dual citizenship. That means we live, well, think of it this way. On the mountain of life, there's two roads. One road leads into the physical, the world of appearance with things changing all the time. And the other road leads into the eternal, the faith. And so we have one road that focuses on the physical and one that focuses on spirit. Earlier, I thought about my parents, and they both transitioned in 2009, 6 days apart. And they illustrate for me what those two roads are like, because my dad was very physical. He loved the physical. Spiritual stuff intrigued him, but he couldn't quite understand what that was about. My mother, on the other hand, was deeply interested in spiritual things and really didn't seem to care much about the physical aspect. That describes those roads, and you and I can take our identity from either road. So let's kind of get clear on that idea, because if this past week, if you hurt, if you suffered, if you felt rejected by someone, if you felt crushed by life itself, I'm telling you the reason why. The reason is because you're choosing a road that presents that kind of perspective to you. It all depends on the road that you choose. Because if you choose the physical road and things begin to change, life feels as if it's falling apart. If you choose the spiritual road, then you hear funny sounds. And regardless of what might be happening around you, you're able to live with a sense of joy and stability. Two roads. Two roads. If you can imagine, before you arrived on the planet and you were just hanging out in eternity, and you said, once I get there, I'm going to do something really great. Once I get on the planet, I'm going to do amazing things. But then we get here and we forget who we really are for the most part. We're sort of operating like a secret agent in a way. Do you know what I mean? We're undercover. I watched an FBI show, and the person went undercover. And they began slowly to identify with the criminal element. At first they said, these are the bad guys. But then they thought, they're not so bad. They seem sort of like me. And then slowly they changed. And you and I do the same thing. We come into the earth, we come into this planet, and we want to keep our divinity under wraps. And so as soon as you arrive, they put you in a baby bed, and you said to yourself, no levitation, no levitation, no levitation, because the parents will know something's up. And so you don't want to do any miracles. You wanted the bottle, or you wanted something, and you thought, I'll just bring it over to me. Oh, I can't do that. I don't want anybody to see the things I can really do. And so we take our divinity, and in a serious way, we do take our divinity and we put it under wraps, and we emphasize just the physical. And as we do that, we begin to forget who we are. I think about those roads, and it makes me think about, when I was a kid, I was playing in the river, in the Cumberland River that ran through Harlan, Kentucky, and I couldn't swim. I would say not very well. Some would say not at all. But I couldn't swim, but I was still playing in the river, and so I took my buddies and I found some boats, and so we got the boats together. And I decided I would put one foot in one boat and one in the other and said, hey guys, watch this. This is a neat idea. And so I'm floating down the river and everything's cool. And then they move apart just a bit and I thought, I think that's exactly what I said, And then they moved apart even more and then it got really uncomfortable. And so you and I do the same thing. We try to live in both worlds at the same time, and that's hard to do. If we can live in the spiritual world, understanding who we are, then we can really have a beautiful life in the physical. But if we're transitioning back and forth with who we are, our identity, it will absolutely get us in trouble. And will be just like, if you can imagine me going down the river, the same thing can happen very easily to you. And so choose. Choose. And choosing means that you're going to decide, today I'm going to live as if I am actually a spiritual being. And then someone upsets you in the office, and we often immediately go to the other side. But this week it's going to be different, because this week we're going to be very much aware that that's exactly what we're trying to do. As a little boy, I used to sneak out of the house at night, like at age 5 or 6. At night, I especially enjoyed walking around in the dark in the mountains. Moon might be out, but it would be dark. I loved the darkness. And there was a certain, even at a young age, a spiritual element to that. I liked that. But I didn't like fog. I didn't like being in the fog. It felt different to me. It felt scary to me. Mary Pat and I were vacationing some time ago in the mountains, and you remember the place. You remember the restaurant? The wind blew all night. It was a crazy place. And when we got there, there was this deep fog that came, and you couldn't hardly see anything at all. But we realized we'd gone past the gate to the cabin, and so I had to back up. Me, as the guy, it's no big deal. I'll just back up. And so I started backing up, and Mary Pat grabbed my hand, and I looked at her, and her eyes were closed, and she was kind of, not trembling, but almost. And, of course, I continued to back up. And then I stopped, and I said, what's wrong? And she said, she may have said, are we dead? Because she felt as if we were going over the mountain. She had that intense feeling, and she could even feel as if she was falling. Fog can do that to you. Fog can give you, it can create an illusion in your life. Fog, I mentioned fog because that's what's mentioned in Genesis 2:6, a mist where we no longer see the truth about who we are. We get confused. We want someone to like us. We want someone to care about us. We want to do well in a job. And we do those things, and that can almost be like a mist. And so we can get lost in that, and it can cause us to be really sad at times. It can throw us. Growing up in the mountains, every morning just about, not every morning, but it almost seemed that way, the fog would rise off the mountain in the morning, and I loved that. And my mother, because she had the spiritual slant, would say, spirits are close. She talked that way. And I love that. And then she said, it's going to be a great day. It's going to be a good day because it's a good sign when the fog rises. It will be a good sign for you when the fog rises. And it rises when you remind yourself of who you actually are. Quit playing a game, quit fooling around, quit just doing it on a Sunday, but really do that as you're moving through life, because it makes all the difference in the world. Sometimes we get so good at our role of being incarnated that we go so far undercover we can't even get out who we actually are, and we absolutely do forget. It's misidentification. And under misidentification, we say things like, I'm not good enough, and I don't have enough, and I'll never have enough, and my parents didn't have enough, and I don't have enough education, and I don't have enough of this, I don't have enough of that. My life isn't working. And when we do that, we develop coping mechanisms, and we sometimes get into compulsive behaviors and defense mechanisms. We even create personalities. We even create personas. We play Halloween and we put a mask on so no one really knows who we are. And we do all of that because we're trying to get through life. Even though life may slap us occasionally, we become afraid because we've forgotten how eternal, how loving, how powerful we are. And so we put the mask on. We become reactive. Don't be messing with me. If you say something negative to me, I'll fight you right back. And when we think that way, we're certainly on the physical road. And if we're reactive, we're missing the whole point of who and what we are. So we can take the mask off for all practical purposes. I heard a story this week about a grand king. That this was a nice king. He was a kingly king. He was involved in kingly activities. He was a nice king. And he'd reached a point in his life where he really wanted to have wisdom. And then he would be a nice kingly king with wisdom. And so he looked all around and he said, who can give me wisdom? And he sort of surveyed everybody, and they finally came up with someone. They said, well, it's someone that's in your court. It's someone that comes in and talks to you, that entertains you. And he said, well, who is it? And they said, well, it's the wise Dusty. It's the wise Dusty. And he said, bring the wise Dusty into me. And the wise Dusty came in. And the king said, wise Dusty, I am seeking wisdom, and I'm told that you know the way to find wisdom. And the wise Dusty said, well, it's about time. I mean, I've been juggling, I've been dancing, I've given you lots of levity, all for the purpose of awakening you so you would understand who you actually are and that you're not really the king, you're really a servant of the Most High God, the one and the only, and the one presence and the one power, and now you finally realize it, so I'm glad you're asking for wisdom. And she leaned over and touched his third eye, and bam, he fell asleep. And when he opened his eyes, he was in a tiny little boat. And he looked all around, and there was no land, and it was a large ocean. And he was not happy. He thought, the wise Dusty is very tricky. I have been bamboozled, and I'm very upset. And he had a high level of pissosity. And with all of that intensity, there was nowhere to put it. And so he slowly became calm, and then he turned to prayer. Now, he was a king, and so he had not been used to praying, and so he began the prayer by saying something like, I'm available for insight. I'm available for revelation. Please give me some. And in a short time, he saw land, and he started to paddle his little boat for life. And he got there, he met some of the people. The people were very polite and very nice, and he thought to himself, I'll only be here for a while because I'm a king, and they're going to be looking for me, I know, but it didn't happen that way. And so the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years, and he soon realized he was stuck on this island. And then he thought, I need to integrate into these people's lives. And so he fell in love with a woman. They married. They had 3 children. Life was really good. And he dealt with the issues of having relationships. He hired a relationship coach to give him advice. And his heart opened to his wife. He deeply loved her, and he loved the little kids, and he loved the people, and he watched the people grow old, and some of them transitioned, and it broke his heart. And he found he had such compassion, patience with the children. He had all these beautiful qualities. At a certain point, his wife transitioned, and he really had a hard time with that because he said he loved her so deeply. And then he said, the thing I want to do in life is to make a positive difference to the people here. And he did that. He lived a beautiful, beautiful life. And then it came time for him to transition. He was able to transition in such a powerful way, peaceful, with joy, and with love. And he closed his eyes. And then he opened his eyes, and he was sitting on his throne. And there was the wise Dusty. And he realized that he'd only been gone for 5 minutes. And he had lived his entire life. And he had gained great wisdom from living that entire lifetime. His life was changed, and he was so grateful for all the wisdom. That story describes you and me, because you and I are divine beings. And we come to this planet, and we come maybe with a curricula of things we want to learn, compassion and wisdom and joy, and how to maneuver and navigate through the physical. And yet so often we absolutely forget who we are. We have such a high calling. You have such a high calling. You have such a high calling. You have a mission. And if you're thinking, yeah, he's not talking to me, he must be talking to the other guy over here, because I don't think I do. I don't think I have a purpose. I don't have a mission. I don't have anything going on. And that, if you're thinking that, laugh to yourself and say, oh, what a silly belief. See, that's just a belief. And it's a belief that's incorrect, because you are a divine being and you came at this time in history for a reason. That's the truth. Now, you can choose a physical road and just think all you got is how you look and what you own, and you're getting older, and you look in the mirror and maybe you have no hair on the head anymore, and hair coming out weird places out of your ears and stuff like that. And if you're feeling that way, you're going to be sad. You're going to be depressed. But if you turn it around and you think, I'm a divine being. I am full of love. I am full of joy. I'm full of abundance. And I can love others and give to others. God, this is the greatest thing in the whole world. Doesn't matter anything else. That's where the joy comes from. And it's a choice. It's a choice of what you choose to believe. You're like, I used to say, a spiritual UPS woman or man, which means you got some stuff to deliver. You've got stuff to deliver. You've got gifts. And you'll hear more Cindy talking about gifts later. You've got gifts. You've got talents. You've got love to give to other people. You can cry in your sour milk and stuff and say, well, nobody's loving me. But see, that's not why you came. You didn't come just for that. You came to give love. And that's when you really have the power. That's when you have joy. And then other love is going to come. But your focus, you understand, your focus is outward. It's inward, and then it's outward in the giving. And so it's, the basic bottom line is that you've come here for the spiritual advancement of the world. And you say, well, I don't know about the world. Well, your world involves the people you're living with. Your world involves the people you see, the people that you work with. You're here to help them spiritually advance and to unfold your own soul. That's the reason. And so you and I understand that. It's time to come out of the closet. It's time to take the bushel off your light. Karen and I sing the song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. I'm going to let it shine. And that's the whole story. Except it's not a little light. It's a big light. It's a big light. It's a beautiful light. And you're here to let it shine. If you walk around through the world saying, please somebody shine on me, you're going to be sad. I mean, come on. Don't waste your time with that. You shine I'd almost want to cuss right here. You shine your light. Shine your light, because that's where the real joy comes from. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. And when you do that, you know what happens? The fog rises. The fog rises. My mother said, it's a good sign. The fog is rising. It's going to be a good day. So we don't have to hide anymore. And we discover more and more about ourselves. That's the context we live from. Let's get that. I'm here for the spiritual advancement of the people around me. What does that mean? It means you see the goodness in them. You see the love in them. You see the joy in them. You see the peace in them. Because it's in you and it's in them and it's in everyone. And that's what you're thinking about. That's what you're emphasizing. That's when the world begins to work for everybody as we do that. Because when you do it, it's not just you doing it to someone, but it affects everything. It affects the whole universe. And if a few of us begin to do it, the percentage, you see, changes everything. And so that's the context. Do you want to take care of your physical body? Absolutely. Do you want to take care of your emotional body? Absolutely. Do you want to have great relationships? Oh yeah, you want to have great relationships, and you want to have a good place of employment, and you want to be able to build all those structures. But that's not the main thing. Those are the side items. The main item is you're remembering who you are. And when I think of God, of course, I'm not thinking of a guy in a long robe with a chain around his neck saying, "Peace, man." I mean, I'm not thinking about that kind of thing, or a lady floating on a cloud saying, "Hallelujah, praise God." I'm not thinking about that. I think of qualities. I think of love and peace and joy and order, all of those beautiful qualities. And so all of those things are inside of you. All of those things are inside of me. So that's the context we operate from. That's the context. That's the foundation we stand on. I'm going to ask you all out now for coffee. And and to do that, you'll have to close your eyes. And when you close your eyes, you're going to see me sitting across the table from you, and you're having coffee or something, and I'm having water. Or perhaps a Coke. So I'm having whatever I'm having, and it's just you and me now. Nobody else is around. And so you and I are just talking. And we're talking about this very thing. And I say, wow, wouldn't it be something if we just came out and not be undercover anymore? And you say, yeah, that would really be something. And you know what that would mean? What that would mean is that you're taking your power back. You're taking your power back. You're no longer a vacuum cleaner trying to suck the life out of everybody you meet. Because when you're sucking the life out of everybody you meet, you live in hell. And now, instead of that, you're giving love. You're caring about other people. You're living from your highest self, and you wake up and you say, I've got a calling today. I'm going to cheer somebody up. I'm going to smile at somebody. I'm going to hug somebody. I'm going to do something beautiful. And that's why I'm here. And so then when you see lack and limitation, when you see dis-ease and maybe disharmony, you have such a transcendent vision of what's possible. You rise above that. And you almost laugh at this point. You chuckle and you think, that's just fog. Watch me blow it away. And it's gone. Jesus talked to his disciples once and he told them, you're going to do greater things than I've ever done. And they said, what? He said, yeah, you're going to do greater things. And then you know what he did? He blew on them, the Bible says, as if he was blowing the cobwebs, the fog away. And so that's what we're doing. And so I ask you, as we're sitting there having our drink and your eyes are closed, I ask, well, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you say yes to the divine impulse that's inside of you? Can you expand your vision to a vision state? And I say, can you behold? Which means you can see through the fog. It's like Superman in X-ray vision. You can see through the circumstances. Isn't that great? You can see through the circumstances, see through the situations, see through all of the things in the appearance world to see the truth. And that's where you live from, the truth. And now, nobody's around in our little restaurant, so I say, hey, let's just turn within and go deeper. Nobody's around, just us. And so now we go deeper. And this is our prayer. And we go deeper within. And we hear the words, you are the spiritual image and likeness of God. That's the truth. You were never born, and you will never die. Your body was born, your body will die, but you're so much more than that. You're so much more than that. You're an expression of the Almighty, an expression of Spirit. And the mist is gone. And you align yourself with the presence. And you say, what God is, I am, and I am what God is. And I'm going to live like it today. And that means there's nothing you can't do, be, or have. It means you are sure that you came to this planet to create. I ask you what you're sure of, and you say, I'm sure that I am an eternal being. I am an extension of Spirit. I'm on the leading edge of creation. And so, in this prayer, let us commit to remember. Remember. We bring the ideas back together. We remember them. That we, our spirit, all things work together for our good, and every need is met. And whether or not we live in heaven or we live in hell right now is simply what we choose to believe. This week, we choose to believe we are divinity wrapped in a body. Divinity wrapped in a body. And I'm glad we are, because we can hug each other that way. Otherwise, we just walk around blowing on each other. So we can touch, we can hold hands, we can love each other. What a great opportunity. And if you're ready to do this, please confirm that with me by saying, and so it is.